Stephen Fleming is a longtime friend of mine. I've known him for probably 15 years maybe or longer.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And I knew his parents longer than that. His parents were the chaplains in the seminary on the campus when I was in school. So our family goes back a long way. Stephen has somehow decided he wants to give his life to ministry. And so my heart goes out to you, darling, but I think you'll make a fine one. So we want to welcome Stephen this morning. He has a message and meditation for us. And so if you will give Stephen a warm unity welcome, and come on up, Stephen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. Are we ready to get this thing started?
Yep.
All right. Okay. First of all, I want to thank Reverend Farrelly for the opportunity to speak. You know, I love speaking with you guys. This was my first Unity Church that I ever spoke at. And so, I'm sure.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Sure. So I'm really grateful for another opportunity to share this Sunday morning. And so, the name of my talk, as you can see, Shelah, inside, outside, and beyond. Now, in Judaism, which preceded Christianity, they teach them at an early age, all the way to when they're children, to question. Shelah means to question, but it also means to possess a willingness to know. So why do I say that? Well, because sometimes when we ask questions, we really don't want to know. We don't want to know the answer. And so, before I begin with my talk this morning, I'd like everyone to close your eyes. Wherever you're seated, however you're seated, be comfortable. But close your eyes and go to your God's eyes. And I want you to imagine that you are in the middle of a desert. All around you, there's nothing but desert. As far as the eye can see, devoid of life, devoid of water. And so you look around and look at your predicament. And so you glance at a part of the ground that's in front of you, where it's the sand. And you think and say to yourself, is this so? And suddenly, from that spot that you were looking at, inquisitively, vegetation begins to sprout right before your very eyes and grow and bloom, blossom. And so you stop and you look around. So now you're in the midst of a desert with this area of vegetation in front of you. So then you begin to look around some more. And everywhere you look, inquisitively, not accepting what you're seeing, but inquisitively, more and more vegetation begins to sprout up around you until finally you're surrounded by an oasis. There's water where you can take a cool drink, an abundance of water now. And there's shade to protect you from the scorching sun. Suddenly you are in a beautiful place, an oasis. You may open your eyes. Metaphorically, this represents a world of appearances. A world of appearances. And when you look at the state of things in our country, where you have people willing to go to war for their beliefs, where we are divided and polarized, the essence of this word, Shelah, to ask, to inquire, to petition, with a willingness to know, becomes evidently and abundantly clear. In the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7 through 8, it reads, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened." Metaphysically, there is an abundant supply in the invisible realm that merely awaits our asking, awaits our activating it. It's yearning to support us. Its manifestation is only dependent upon our understanding of what we are to do. Shelah, ask and it will be given to you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. So the first aspect of our journey in Shelah, inside, outside, and beyond, is inside, is within. And so in order to experience an oasis in consciousness, it is imperative that we possess the courage to question our perceptions, to question our interpretations, and to question what we believe. Now, why is that? Well, quite simply because many of our interpretations, perceptions, and beliefs are false. And number two, because questioning leads to freedom. Now, we treat our beliefs like real estate, and we defend them against any trespasser. Anyone who we perceive is crossing our boundaries, we defend them rigorously. We treat our beliefs like heirlooms, family heirlooms, that are passed down from our great-grandfather. This is what your great-grandfather thought, this is what your grandfather thought, this is what your daddy thought, and now we're passing this on to you. Many of our beliefs are associative. the groups that we identify with. There is a collective energy, a collective consciousness in these groups that we associate with. And so, even though we may not directly associate or take on these beliefs, we do take on many of them. Why? Because we want to be part of the group. We want to belong. We want to be included. Even though these may not be our original beliefs, but because we associate as this or as that, then many of the beliefs that are the collective consciousness of this or that, we take into our own. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about beliefs. Beliefs form in our consciousness what I like to call a perpetual cocoon. Many of our beliefs were taken on as children. They basically consist of self-related ideas, what we think about ourselves. So, for example, let's say if someone had a sibling, and that sibling they perceived that sibling got more attention and more praise, then they take on the belief that they are less lovable than their sibling. And so everything that occurs at that point, once you become invested in that belief, will begin to support what you believe. You see, your brain is not going to disagree with you. It is the perfect servant. And so, when you are invested in a belief, your brain then begins to scan your environment for evidence that supports it. And any evidence that supports what you believe, it will allow through into your conscious awareness. And any evidence that does not support it, it moves it to your subconscious. So it filters it. It filters it. So what this does is this creates a flawed system. You see, we already have our brain which is filtering the information. So we're not even getting all the information. We're not getting all the facts because our brain is filtering it in accordance to our beliefs. Our brain becomes biased at that point. Then we're making decisions based on the filtered information. And then after we make that decision based on the filtered information, we get confirmation that we are right. So what this does is this creates a perpetual hamster wheel. An endless cycle, a prison for your mind, for our mind. I'm going to read beliefs affect an individual's perception of reality by creating filters that are applied at the beginning of the decision-making process to evaluate the facts. This perception of reality affects our conclusions and decisions. These conclusions and decisions tend to reinforce the original belief. So how do we get out of this perpetual hamster wheel? How do we free ourselves? You can
put the TV in the shed.
Good idea, but to question. Shelah. Ask, and it will be given you. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. You know, about came upon this realization of this dynamic that works in our lives about a year before I entered into ministerial school. And so I was sort of no particular special day, but I was looking at a magazine. And in this magazine, there were these houses, beautiful, gorgeous houses. And leading up to these houses were these long, elaborate driveways. And parked in front of these homes were these really nice cars that cost more than my home. So I found myself getting a charge. I found myself growing upset. I found myself applying labels to whoever owned these homes and cars. Pretentious, ostentatious. Here I was looking in a magazine, upset, but not really knowing why. I knew what my story was telling me, that these people were wasting their money and things like that. But later on, a little bit later on, I experienced a split in consciousness. And so part of me was me, and then part of me was this higher intelligence. And so this higher intelligence asked me inquisitively, Stephen, why are you getting so upset about looking in the magazine? And so I was in my story. Because this and that, and this and that, and these people are wasting money, and da-da-da-da-da, they could be feeding this and all that other stuff. Yeah, I had a whole story. I was in my story. But this higher intelligence wasn't fooled at all. Come on, Stevie. Why are you really upset? And then suddenly, I experienced an epiphany. The real reason that I was upset just suddenly just flashed in my mind. I didn't even know it was there before. Had no idea. I felt unworthy of these things. I felt unworthy of these really nice, lavish things. I felt unworthy. And so there were other people that had these things, and so I was upset about that. I had no idea that this belief was there. All the time it had been operating beneath the surface. I had no idea that this dynamic was playing out in my life. It was never really there as far as I was aware, my conscious awareness, and then suddenly it was there. And I'm like, I see you. I see you. And that belief is like, yeah, how you doing? Been here the whole time, and affecting your perceptions and your decisions and everything else. And so then I began to do a review. I began to do a review of my life to see where this false belief had been impacting me, had been sabotaging me. And so I began to see instances where I made decisions that seemed like the right thing to do at the time. It made perfect sense at the time, but now that I'm seeing that this belief was really responsible for it, now I'm seeing a flawed decision based on this belief I had. And I had no idea it was there. And so the question came to me, what else is hiding? What else is operating beneath the surface? What else else am I not aware of? And that is how they work, brothers and sisters. They make complete, perfect sense. They have a breadcrumb logic. It speaks our language. It makes perfect sense at the time. And so we have no idea of the dynamics that are playing out. We have no idea that we're actually operating in a perpetual prison. We have no idea. And that is why it is imperative that we develop within us the capacity to question our beliefs and the willingness to know the answers. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity. I love this. You see, he didn't believe being stuck in any particular way. He always believed in constantly growing and evolving. He always was exploring. And certain ideas and beliefs that no longer served, he had no problem saying, I reserve the right to change my mind. I love that. I love that. Because see, when you have those rigid beliefs that you have to just stay just focused on and stuck, and this is right, and I'm right, and just be stuck in your rightness, you imprison yourselves. We imprison ourselves from a new understanding, from our evolution, our growth. But we're just stuck in being right. You know, if those other people, if they just, they just were like me and thought like me, everything would be okay. Ain't that sound familiar? Is that just me? Just want to make sure that's not just me. Okay, all right. They make perfect sense at the time, brothers and sisters, but that does not mean that they are absolute truth. It's true to us, and it's meant to be. So how do we free ourselves from that? How do we free ourselves? Well, within, we have to begin to question that little voice. That little voice that's constantly spinning a narrative. You see, what we're not aware of is that voice has a direct pipeline into our unconscious beliefs. There's a direct pipeline from that voice into our unconscious beliefs. And it makes perfect sense. Absolute perfect sense. It speaks our language. But we have to question it. And I say all this because underneath all of our beliefs, as we begin to clear out the layers like an onion, underneath all of that is an authentic self that we all have, an authentic self. And see, this authentic self is perfect for every situation. This authentic self knows how to be what it is. This authentic self that is within each and every one of you is inspiring, is uplifting, and it actually provides nourishment for people. You take one authentic person and you put them in a group of 100 people and watch and see that group begin to be inspired and transformed by the authenticity of that one authentic person who is being as they were created to be, who is living their truth, who does not believe that they are less than, who does not believe that they are not enough. They know that they're enough. And because they see themselves as enough, they see their brothers and sisters as enough. And there's something within us energetically that responds to that. Because that's so different from what we've experienced in our culture, in our consciousness. That's so different from what we've been taught. It's a completely new dynamic. So we resonate to a thank you. Someone that gives us permission to express our vulnerabilities. When we're afraid, we don't have to be an ideal person and show little slices of us, little bits of it at a time, slices of us that we've prejudged to be okay to show. And then the other parts, beautiful aspects of ourselves that we've prejudged not to be enough, we hide it. And so we walk around like facades. A facade of a person, not a whole person. That is not what this world needs. That is not what this world needs. And so, if there is any aspect of you that you consider is not enough, I invite you to question. I invite you to take it within. Is this so? Am I truly unworthy? Is this so? Just like looking at the part of the desert, the floor of the desert. Is this so? And as we begin to free ourselves from the stranglehold of our beliefs, in the external, we begin to free our hold on our brothers and sisters as far as what they should do and how they should be and what they should say and all these. So we stop shooting on people as we begin to stop being a dictator with ourselves. So do we stop being a dictator with our brothers and sisters and dictating our values onto them. Shelah. Ask and it will be given to you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. So the next step, the next aspect of our journey is Shelah outside. It's Shelah inside, outside, and beyond, Shelah outside. And so with that, I would invite you to question the narrative. I would invite you to question your observations and the narrative that you experience in the media. You can talk about TV. In the media, I would invite you to question the narrative. I would invite you to question anything that would divide you against your brother or sister. I would invite you to question it. Is the idea more important than the human being? Are you looking at the human being? Are you looking at yourself? Remember, we are 99.9% a genetic match. Are you looking at yourself? Are you giving yourself the love and respect that you deserve by putting an idea in front of yourself, in place of yourself, and thinking that that is you? Is that justice? Is that justice for someone who is divine? I invite you to question that. As far as Shelah beyond, I'd like to read a quote. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. T.S. Eliot. Brothers and sisters, a people divided is a people with no voice. A people divided is a people with no power. No power. And I asked this question last time, when I spoke here last time. Who stands to gain from a divided people? Who stands to gain? Not me, not you, but somebody does. And so I invite you to question. I invite you to question the narrative that is pitting you against your brother or sister, against those who do not share our ideas, against those who do not share our beliefs. I invite you to question these things. I also said this last time. Whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat, I invite you to reach across the party line and begin to, in earnest, begin to open the door to communication and discussion. If this country is truly to be great, then it depends on us, not our leaders, not our elected officials. With our elected officials, this is going to be more the same. It is up for us to show them the way. And reaching out to someone who has ideas that completely contradict your own, that does not marginalize your own beliefs. That does nothing to marginalize your beliefs. What that actually does is that creates a pool of shared meaning. As you get to know this person, as you begin to communicate with this person, what happens at that point is you come in with this pool of shared meaning at an elevated point of consciousness that you didn't have when you were being divisive, where now you have new ideas that you never would have experienced before had you not both invested in this pool of shared meaning, where the two of you were able to communicate, where two sides can then communicate and then begin to understand one another. Doesn't mean you're going to agree, but then come to higher levels of agreement that you never would have experienced had you not gone through that. That is the essence of the Christ. That is the essence of the Christ. The Christ is not about everybody doing the same thing, everybody believing the same thing, going to the same movie, eating the same food and stuff like that. That's not what the Christ is about. Christ is about coming together of different ideas, different viewpoints, and coming to an elevated viewpoint that we would not have experienced had we not contributed all of our viewpoints together. Does that make sense? So wherever you stand on abortion, on vaccination, wherever you stand, I invite you to open up and reach across to those that have an opposing view in the same manner, because it's time for a change. And that change begins with us. So let's take that within. So allow yourself to go within. Into the vast space of limitless potential, limitless possibility, limitless creation that is within you right here, right now, in this very moment. where your humanity intersects with your divinity, and the two go hand in hand, joyfully as partners. For that is what you are, both human and divine. And so allow yourself to experience a picture in your mind of a different way of being that is inclusive, that embraces the person, that holds the person as sacred, regardless of the idea. Allow yourself to experience in your mind a world of co-creation. Where you and your brothers and sisters contribute beautiful, wonderful ideas into an energetic pool of shared meaning from which all of humanity can stand upon and experience greater truths, greater understandings, greater insights. Envision yourself being that which you desire to see in the world. Allow yourself to feel the gratitude for spirit in remembrance that all things in the universe work together for my highest good. And so we are grateful in the name and after the nature of the indwelling Christ. And so it is. My brothers and sisters, go and be that light that your Father, Mother, God intended for you to be. Thank you.